Okay, you are live, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
Okay, everybody. Great council order. I will begin. Welcome everybody to the Gunshot Treaty Land of 1788. It's on these lands and on the shores of the big lake that we know as Lake Ontario, that the Simcisko and Acknowledgement met with the Crown to facilitate the opening of these lands for settlement. Let us be reminded of the responsibility we all have in making sure that we respect these lands and waters that give us life and sustain livelihoods. On the agenda, we will move our Councilor Prentice to Secretary Deputy Anderson to council approve the July 15th, 2024 agenda as presented. Any discussion?
I was hoping that we potentially move up the YMCA discussion first.
I'll need a motion for that. Yes, Councilor Prentice, Deputy Mayor, will be setting aside your motion.
Everyone have it to the second section. Where are you? Not this one. Do you want to move it there? Point one.
The council amended the July 15th agenda to move CAO report, the YMCA. I'm not sure it's a CAO report. I'm assuming it's everything to do with the YMCA, including the. Oh, that's way too much. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we need a new sound system.
Really?
And
Chambers?
I'm gonna put, move all items related to YMCA to 7.1. That work for you? So the amended July 15th agenda to move all items related to YMCA to section 7.1. So second. Discussion. That's right.
Will that,
That was a relevant.
thank you. Will that include the comments as well? Expect what you're.
That does not include citizens, not for devices that we have citizens.
Okay, then, thank you.
Let me discuss. That will be. Okay. So the agenda, as it is now. So my intent, if we pass this motion, will be to move everything to 7.1. 7.1A would be the first item related to the YMCA on our current agenda, ACP, etc. Right on? All those in favor? Any opposed?
Camera behind you.
Now the motion from Councilor Prentice and Deputy Mayor Anderson is back on the table and will be read as the council approved the July 15th, 2024 council agenda as amended. Those in favor? Opposed? Members of council, do you have any guys, before I go there, my understanding is that Council Bylaw consent regrets, she may be able to attend either in person or virtually, and if she does, I will be great, but if she doesn't, again, she may not. Members of council, have any declarations of marriage, so we say general. Is there any announcements? Brings us to the adoption of the minutes, the motion by Councilor Prentice, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, Councilor adopted June 24, 2024, second council meeting minutes, as presented. Second. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The motion by Councilor Prentice, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, Councilor adopted June 24, 2024, council meeting minutes, as presented. Second. Those in favor? Opposed? Applicant 7.1A, which is a presentation from Eunice Kirkpatrick, CEO, YMCA. Eunice.
Couple buttons.
And just a reminder, this is a council meeting of the municipality, not a presentation or a performance. Eunice, over to you.
Hey, thank you very much, and good evening, Mayor Ostrander and Council. I really appreciate the opportunity to come back and provide you with an update on our Brighton YMCA as we're heading into our 21st year in the community. For those of you who don't know how we came to be, I just wanted to provide a brief history of our Brighton YMCA. In around the year 2000, the community vision to provide healthcare services and health and wellness services under the same roof to address gaps in community services was the vision of the council and the mayor at the time, and also Ian Rinaldi, if you do recall the room. From there, discussions, we were approached actually, the Wires approached and invited into the community to see what we could do to provide these services. There was ongoing discussion and about a potential partnership, and this was I think ahead of its time, bringing two sort of key health services together. And there was a lot of collaboration that went on, and a partnership was formed. We had the IT building on Main Street, and it was actually November, December 2003, and I have to say I was around at that time, so I'm dating myself. But we opened the doors to our YMCA. And just to give you the scope and breadth of YMCA in Northumberland and what we do. And we're the largest provider of licensed childcare in the county. We have 22 licensed childcare.
She tells me when to
We
do.
have 5 county on-site on Beach that serves the whole of the county. We have the One Health Fitness Aquatic Centre in Deferred, and we have our Health and Fitness Centre here in Brighton. We also have agreements to operate 3 outdoor seasonal pools, one in Campbellford, one in Colbert, and the Alderville First Nation. And we offer 3 summer day camps over Colbert and Brighton that we reinitiated a couple of years ago. The other piece that we do is social programming. And for example, the YMCA Alternative Extension Program. We worked with the YMCA of Quebec, and we had a pilot program for 3 years. And we're looking to find funding to continue. It's a great success. It's a short-term suspension program where high school students can come to the Y versus local in 600 years. And it's been a phenomenal success. We also have the upturn program. And that addresses people who are recovering from addictions. And the mothers of newborn, and mothers, first time mothers, second time mothers, just struggling with all the social issues that comes with new motherhood. And we've had over 1,800 people come through that program in 7 years. And last but not least, we have our international partnership program with the YMCA in Brighton, and we work together to support the center in Nicaragua. So when I stood here before you last October, I talked about the plan for YMCA in Northumberland, and I'm just going to bring you a bit of an update. Licensed care is such a need in our communities, as we know, with the new Canadian-wide licensed childcare that rolled out a couple of years ago. So it's really our focus to make sure that we can continue to offer more spaces, and we're working on family licensed care at the Centre for Indigenous Studies of Deferred. There'll be 15 children, similar to the one we offer in Grafton. Fully licensed childcare work that we're renovating right now. It should be open mid-September, and we'll have 47 licensed spaces. We also have, we're working with the Municipality of Brighton to open a similar centre in Hampton, because rural childcare was one of the key initiatives with this program. We also are expanding our before and after care at Notre Dame School forward. And these are all great projects we're working on, but one of our biggest projects is the Sunny Lake Recreation Wellness Centre in Deferred. And we're working in collaboration with the Municipality of Trent Hills. And we're building, they found the need for new infrastructure for a new arena and a full suite of YMCA facilities that the YMCA will run. It's got a learning pool, it's got the playing pool, and conditioning centre and studio space, as well as 3 different chambers that reflects the growing communities and the different dynamics of communities.
Eunice, I don't mean to interrupt, for a few slides ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Normally you do. Okay.
So, thank you. And then the other piece that we're involved in, we're a member of the collaborative partnership of the Youth Wellness Hub Ontario, and the mayor for Hope has been very involved in. And they're opening a new youth hub in Port Hope. We anticipate the opening date to be December sometime. But I'm a member of the decision-making table, and the plan is to bring youth hubs to every community in our Northumberland. So there is opportunity there to bring one right as well. And I want to talk about fundraising strategies because there has been a lot of discussion in the community. I do hear that from our members and our staff and community members at large. So with the pandemic, we had to really reinvent ourselves from a fundraising perspective. Doing the events as we've done in the past, we weren't able to gain fundraising like we had in the past. So we have our funds team along with our board. We have many streams of fundraising. One is our community partners program, and we approach businesses. And they provide us funding that support that they get sponsorship out of it, but it also supports our strong communities campaign. With individual donors, I mean, many of our Brighton members who are sitting behind us who do contribute month to month or contribute if we do kick off events and different things like that. And we have our board and staff, and we have our board member here tonight who is a resident of Brighton, contributes, and our staff campaign, we have many staff who contribute monthly. We do still do annual events. And yes, I've heard, a lot of our events are corporate centric, but we do them in Hamilton. And although funds are raised through events in different communities, those funds raised do support people in Brighton. We also do go after government grants, and I want to speak to the Ontario Trillium. We were very successful in gaining a number of grants through the pandemic. We went after everything we could. There is specific criteria to go after these grants. A lot of them are capital grants. You have to have ownership of your building. So to invest in capital for the Brighton site was not feasible, but and the biggest part, chunk of that money we received was the Treasury exchange for going forward. It's a 45-year-old building. We identified the need, and it's the only fund center in the area, and to serve over the surrounding area. So, and that was a chunk of that money. However, there were resilient grants that we did go after. We supported wage subsidy for Brighton staff. And we also, from a federal level, went after the rent subsidy to help us maintain the building while it was closed. And graciously, the municipality did reduce the rent and we were closed. So with everybody pulling together, we were able to keep the sector and open and moving ahead. So these are the different streams, and also the Brian Talk Foundation that we have applied in the past for funding there. Most recently, we got $2,500 specific for Brighton, and we replaced all our fitness equipment, and the members are just loving it. So we will go after specifics in communities. So that's the next slide. Okay. So just to give you a bit of a breakdown, because I do want to speak to the fundraising aspect, and we looked at 2023 fundraising, and we raised $155,646, and $20,500 was directed to Brighton. And I've listed here on the sheets, and let's sheet the next. You can go back. Yeah, that's it. Ready. That's it. So just a breakdown. I'm not going to go through the amounts, but fee assistance for membership or for camp programming. Last year we had 12 kids in camp. We've doubled those numbers this year with 24 Brighton kids attending our camp. We the Mothers of Newborn. We have many Mothers of Newborn, and it's funded by a corporate individual, and mothers are accessing the program here in Brighton. Same with the Upturn program. We have a number of people recurring from addictions. We do have resident Brighton residents who are attending the Brighton Y in recovery under addictions. And then I mentioned the group fitness. And the other piece that is maybe not as well known is we do shower access. Many people in the local community, if they're well-run drive, we have some homeless people who are regular users. We subsidize the showers so they can feel clean and feel they can go back out into the feeling renewed. And of that 20,500, so that's 13% of what we raised into Brighton last year. And I also want to make note, our fundraising efforts are to support access to programs and services, not for annual operational costs. So next slide, please.
It's just being slow, sorry.
Did we do the funding model?
Back one?
Oh, yeah. There we
Yeah,
go.
okay.
So, I do want to speak to the funding model because the previous CAO had asked for a number of pieces of information from when I last presented in October. And one of the things that I think never answered to ask the question, well, why can't everybody in Brighton access the YMCA or the fitness center? And that's a valid question, a great question. But in order to do that and not apply the program in revenue, I did a scenario for the Y operating at the center versus if the municipality took it over and operated it on their own. So you can see 409,000 just to operate and give access to everybody in the community with no membership model in place. And I did include amortization because we're looking probably at 100,000 in equipment investment. I also do want to say that again, the pandemic had been kind to us. We had 450 members at our peak prior to, and it took us from March 2020 to December of last year to get ourselves back up to that 450. But I think the positive is we have grown 18% in members. So our peak, we peaked in the spring of 530. So I think that's reflective of our growing community and the needs and wants of the Brighton residents. And again, you can see, oh yeah, there's more revenue coming in, but unfortunately, inflation costs have caught up with us as well as minimum wage year over year. So next one, please. So, what's the YMCA's vision for the Brighton community? We really want to build on the 20+ year partnership and continue to collaborate with the municipality and ways we can work together to meet the growing needs of the community over the next several years. And the growth, anticipated growth here by 2029 is 7.8%, which is 945 individuals. So we are going to see that in rapid growth. We want to expand on existing services in our health and aquatics, our licensed childcare, our summer day camp. And we want to introduce satellite youth hub to the community in partnership with the Youth Wellness Hub Ontario. And I think lastly, we want to partner with the municipality to develop this long-term plan for expanded recreational facilities to serve all ages. Next slide, please. So this some of the benefits that we bring to a community. It's convenient for your residents. You don't have to go out of town. We have a membership that's affordable. And if it's not within the means of someone's income, we do have financial assistance, so nobody is turned away in the wild. We provide programs and services that reflect community needs. We create opportunities to access federal and provincial funding. And I do want to speak to that because we found out firsthand that you need all three levels of government to support any infrastructure that is going on in the community. And they also are looking for partners. And nobody can do it alone. The Y can't do it alone. Municipalities can't do it alone. And I think three most recent successful projects that reflect this are the Trenton YMCA, people know the history of Trenton. And the municipality provided the land, built it, the Y operates. There's a new Belleville YMCA, which is a collaboration of partners going into that building. And they work together and lands donated, partners are going to be under the one roof. And then I think, what we're trying to say is the Sunny-Life Recreation and Wellness Centre in Campbellford, which the YMCA is going to operate and close to the communities. And we're operating that on behalf of the municipality. We can also create services without significant burden to tax base. And like I mentioned, we raise funds, so no one is ever turned away. We also attract newcomers into the community, and that's not only immigration, but people relocating to the community. I think if you polled our members at the Y, it's an important question to ask their realtor. Is there a Y in the community? Is there fitness, with access to fitness and health and wellness that's within a 15-minute radius? And that's one of the statistics the Y goes with. 15 minutes is as far as you want to travel for this type of service. And we also have access to many networks. We're a federated model, so we have YMCA Ontario to support us, we have Y Canada to support us, and we have our larger global community to support us as well. So there's lots of resource available. And the other piece is crime reduction. This community is growing, and having safe places, welcoming places, physical activity for the younger generation is really important. It does help with safer communities. We have seen an increase in youth using our facilities, and it really allows our youth to better cope with daily life challenges and to move away from that involvement or temptation of violence, crime, and drug use. And it keeps our community safe. And I do want to reference back to the 2021 Northumberland County Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, which Brighton was one of the communities surveyed to speak to the impact of social programs that support key issues identified in the study. There was 4 key issues of homelessness and affordable housing, mental health, poverty, income, and employment, substance use, and addiction. And I can say you're touching on the last 3 through our assistance program, the affordability piece, the mental health, just physical activity in general is great for mental health, and socialization is great for mental well-being, and the substance abuse and addiction through our Upturn program. And the other key piece is an incentive for medical professionals to relocate to the community. We get asked that often. So just in closing, the request to the Mayor and Council tonight, on behalf of our YMCA and our fellow board and staff, we ask that the past agreement moves from a rental subsidy agreement to a purchase of service agreement, which aligns with all our other agreements throughout the county with the municipalities of Alderville First Nation. We're asking you to consider 40,000 per annum for a period of 5 years, and with inflation costs considered year over year, and really for the Mayor and Council to consider this an investment in your community and the health and wellness of the community. And just also a couple other points there. And we will still contribute the rental amount that we had agreed upon, and 60,000 per annum. And I would really like to ask, the request that you consider voting on this evening. We started these negotiations last spring in 2023, when I approached the former CEO for the lease renewal to begin. And it would be really helpful to give our board, our staff, our volunteers, and the Brighton residents just a pathway to move forward. So I really appreciate your time and listening to me, and if there are any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you, Eunice. Appreciate your presentation. I will open the floor to members of the council for questions and comments on the presentation before I read the motion. I do want to note that we, around this table, I don't think there's anyone who doesn't want to be a partner with the Y, or ready to be able to partner with the Y now and into the future. In fact, it's always been my vision that when we do eventually build a new multi-use recreational facility, for that to be the Y would be one operating partner. That said, I do trust that the Y and your board and the folks in the room understand that we're accountable to the, so we need to make sure that every penny we spend is spent in a good and wise way, regardless of what's on the anything. And never is there a comment around this issue that we want to close the Y, or that we want to have you leave Brighton in any way, shape, or form. We just need to figure out how best to move forward as partners. And I don't know if that's $40,000 today, or whether we need to sit down and have a conversation for them to move forward. Never was there ever a thought that we would want the Y to be or to end our relationship. That discussion has never been had, and I think that there's some noise in the community, and certainly at the Y, that's the fact. Certainly see some old and well-used "Save Our Lives" t-shirts walking through the door. But every time we do this lease renewal, or now up, there seems to be this fervor that we want to close the Y, the council wants to close the Y. That's not the case. We just want to make sure that the dollars we're spending are good and wise. With that said, I will open the floor to some questions. Well,
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you again, Eunice, for your presentation. And I know some of the comments that Mr. Wardle makes will be, I'm going to find that, yeah, but we're here again. This is, I believe, the third renewal. And I've sat through at least two of them. I'm going to go to the fundraising issue, and also to some commentary that has been requested from previous councils as well, as far as getting a comprehensive and sustainable business plan for the plan. That's just specifically Brighton focused, and I don't know that we have seen a lot of that in the last 7 years. So that might be helpful for this one. Local fundraising, I know we have many people here sitting, drafting, creating great letters that we've all been able to review. I do want to go to the fundraising issue regarding a lot of bring up Smithfield School, for example. We have a community here who's very committed to the Y. As Smithfield parents are very committed to getting a playground in their community. And just through the 10 Plunge Study campaign, they raised over $14,000, which would be a significant cost to your $10,000 request regarding your equipment. So I just want to kind of take some of that. I just want to share those comments with you at the stage. I'll open with one for others. So, thank you.
thank you, Councilor Allen. Anyone else? Councilor Burns?
Good chair, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Did you know, if I can clarify a little bit, she said in May 23, fundraising was. I found a note somewhere that said we received funding of $150,000 that same year. Is that suggesting that your local fundraising activities only not to $5,000?
The actual fundraising was 155 and change, and we don't account for any of our grants that we are applying for in the fundraising. Fundraising is strictly those buckets that I listed. So the 150, that was a resilient fund that we got through Ontario Federal that helped supported, and it was really geared around resilient communities. It helped support wages, it helped support cleaning supplies, just a lot of conditions around the pandemic. It did help support, and there was some other infrastructure, but it had nothing to do with the fundraising.
Go ahead. For there's some portion of that 150 or other things that it needs to break.
Yeah, the 150 was for the wage subsidy.
Very well. I don't understand from the article I read that 2022, why received $760,000.
Yes.
Maybe you know what that.
And that was the one I came to earlier, and none of that portion came to the right facility because that was a capital grant. And most of it, the debt drawn, the air exchanger for the body facility in Board, it was 500 and change. I think it was closer to 600. But it was, the criteria was very strict in, it had to be, you had to own the building to be able to apply for that. So we weren't able to apply that to, because we're in a lease situation here in Brighton.
Anyone else? Motion before me is moved by Councilor Rowland, second by Councilor Prentice. The council received a presentation from Eunice Kirkpatrick, CAO, YMCA of Northumberland, as requested. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Recorded vote on that change, right?
Recorded vote has been requested.
Is your mic gonna work?
Oh, that's.
I think so. Counselor, no.
Councilor Henry Valley?
Yes. Yes.
Councilor Jeff Logan?
Yes.
Councilor Bobby Wright? Yes. Deputy Mayor Ron Anderson?
Yes.
Councilor Byron Perez?
Yes.
Mayor Ryan Hoffstander?
Yes. That brings us to our next. Appreciate that participation. That brings us to our next item on the YMCA, as a delegation from Wardle, support of police agreement with the Municipality of Brighton and YMCA of support.
Evening, I'm here with the YMCA member. I've been here a few times before, 2018. I went over my old notes and I haven't changed very much. I'd like to talk about what partnerships can look like. It's nice to talk about being partners, but what does a real partner do? I'm going to cover some history as I see it. I've talked about some of the things that Eunice has already covered. The Y is a not-for-profit charity that provides well-being services to 1,700 communities in Canada. Back around 2001, I think Councilor Rowland was involved in this. Brighton Council worked hard to convince the Deferred Y to branch here. Getting the Y was a big win for the community. 2003 opening in the present building was also a financial win for the town. We want to talk about the numbers. The new Y agreed to a relatively high rental fee, building what was essentially unrentable space, thereby allowing the medical facilities rental space at a much lower rate. That's right, the Northumberland Y subsidized the opening of the medical facilities. The high rate charge was paid by the Y to get something started here. YMCA Northumberland has continued to contribute financially to keep the service going, providing upward of $830,000 for its operating expenses since opening it right. That's money generated by other activities throughout Northumberland. Fortunately, they were eventually able to achieve a lower rental rate for council to help with staying alive. The central perception issue is that the Y is seen and treated as a tenant like any other business requiring space. But the Y is not just a tenant, but a not-for-profit agency of significant benefit to the community. There are on average 480 to 530 members of the Brighton Y. It is physically impossible to obtain a much larger membership in the current restricted facilities. But the Y does much more outreach that Eunice has covered, including childcare, summer day camp, social programs. Ys are wellness centers. They provide services for those with intellectual disabilities and many with physical disabilities. They allow young mothers to exercise and socialize. They work with all citizens from children to seniors of the mind, body, and spirit, subsidizing fees for those economically challenged. They work with the inclusive Northumberland, provide opportunities for the intellectually challenged in our community, and they do a wonderful service there. The Brighton Y is without doubt a leading social center in the town, a major plus for those considering moving here, an important part of the lives of the current members. Communities all over the country welcome them and nurture them and partner with them, and provide free facilities. The Y desperately needs more space. The doctors need more space too. The town growing at a fast rate needs a new wellness center. That's been talked about for years. I don't know if any work is being done in that regard. In any event, it should include the Y in planning. Let me say again, communities partner with Y, while by and large, communities across Canada provide facilities for the YMCA to operate. I'd say again, the communities provide facilities. The YMCA provides the equipment and service expertise. I don't think many communities spend any time checking the major quality of the equipment in the buildings. That's the Y's job. The council's job is to ensure that the community has the accommodation necessary to let the Y get on with its work. I understand you're looking out for local taxpayers as you should, but laboring over relatively minor operating issues and decisions is just wasting everyone's time. So instead of putting Eunice through these phases for months, let's get on with the partnership. Keep this rental platform going while partnering with the Y to get what Brighton sorely needs, a new wellness center. We're growing at close to 8% a year, and the Y can barely accommodate current members. Using what we have as a platform, partner with the Y to get the grants and public support to build an appropriate facility here. In Northumberland, the town of Campbellford sought out the Y, once as Brighton did, but they sought them as partners in a venture to provide a new wellness center in the town, and it worked. They got the grants to build a 66,000 square foot facility that opens this year. They are well aware that having the Y as partner during process. The town owns the building, and YMCA Northumberland provides the equipment and services. Talk to them, see how it's done. Ask Ontario Minister Pecuniary how he's working with the Y. He helped them with being a lot of those grants. There's a new Y going out the Bell. Ask them how they did it. Ask Trenton how they got their new Y a few years ago. So please consider the present Brighton Y as a launching pad. Consider them as partners and work towards the Campbellford experience. At the rate of growth here, it's time to get on with the program. If there's a work ongoing, forgive me, I'm not aware of it. Whatever, bring the Y in as partners and watch it take off. They're superb rent money lobbyists. In economic terms, having a Y provides a huge payback to the community. Even the present limited Y does this. Professor Robinson, writing in Canadian Urban Growth Trends, suggests the following. A large number of small towns and rural areas are experiencing growth because they offer incoming migrants and existing residents special lifestyle and amenity opportunities. This development explains why retirees and persons approaching retirement age are so important to these areas in terms of their potential economic impact. With their pension income, retirees serve much the same economic importance as if an equal number of new manufacturing jobs were attracted. If the town is made livable for retirees, attracting and retaining 100 of them is equivalent to creating 80 new jobs. If Brighton is to continue its economic growth, the town must continue to add amenities. Retiree sector alone demands it. The town must develop a significant new wellness center as a priority in my view. Northumberland YMCA could be your partner, except that our taxpayers' small contribution to a wellness center here now is not being misused. The Y is one of the key attractions on checklists of many new citizens. They take, yes, there's a local Y before they bought or built their retirement home here. Many more potential migrants will want to take that same path. They may not locate here for that Y. Tell voters the Y is important. Tell the DBIA the Y is important. Y members, me included, head downtown after work out. Ask Mullins about that. We keep the money in town. Let's work together to build a new wellness center with the Y to accommodate our new arrivals for the health of our community. I'm sure that Northumberland YMCA is not misusing Brighton's contribution in the current operation. Support full partnership and use the YMCA know-how to help us build that new wellness center. Thank you.
Against Wardle, we'll open the members of council questions and comments, but we know that Council Rowley was elected in 2006, I believe. I was elected in 2003. Nobody around this table was at that table in 2001. Sadly, for better or worse, although four of the members on that council are still alive. Three, unfortunately, aren't the same.
And I just comment on what you just said. I remember one of my first committee appointments was to the as a representative of the municipality with Y. And I should say the first question asked to me as I walked into my first meeting was, when are you going to get us the money? And so I want to say it was part of that group to get your money at the beginning. And just to make one more comment while I have to make a second. Mr. Wardle, I don't think anyone around this table or any staff member of the municipality considers that the money that the Y has been misused, not at all.
And I think we would all, a number of us had in conversations and certainly in our strategic plan about the building of and the strategy around creating funds for a multi-use recreational center. So that's certainly on the visioning. It is just a matter of how to get those in place and so trying to get it done. So the first part of that is making the municipality has a path forward. It's in our strategic plan. Off the top of my head, I don't recall what the date is, but 2030, there you go. So that's coming up faster than we think, we all know. So here we go. This is a good start, so thank you for that. So members of council, questions and comments. That's Wardle sit down.
Thank you. Just, and this might be a question for Eunice, Mr. Wardle, I'm not really sure. At some point in your presentation, you said that the Y helps and supports inclusion of government. Do you know if Sunny Days have any programs at Y?
I'm not sure of that, but inclusion of government has been working with the Y for years now, the summer camps and providing services for all the people served. I don't know about Sunny Day.
Well, anyone else? Councilman?
When we asked certain questions in December, I had been under the impression at the time when we would receive an answer maybe the next day, maybe the following week by email, and then we would put it to rest. We received those answers tonight. We've had a lot of change in the municipality in terms of staff turnover and things like that over the last several months. I don't know where this dropped off. I'm really glad it's been picked up again, but this is not a matter of us trying to be pedantic. This is a matter of us, we ask questions, now we have an answer, now we move forward. I really appreciate you, coming tonight. I hope this hasn't been, I hope there's no sense that we're trying to waste anybody's.
All of this started sometime last year, right?
During budget again. That's what it was. Anyone else? Councilor,
I just want to say thank you for being able to all these counselors, and then around the table, and see all the emails, and everyone getting to see them. And having, the privilege of having a business on Main Street, I've had several people come to my mercy and then the counselors here all at the same time. So I'm just really impressed by the community's support for the Y. It's very clear this is a very important issue and I think to get this done. Which I think is what is on all of our minds today about. So, you know, I think movement is help. And we have an evening community, we have a community retirees. I have been probably the first one to tell you that I am the first one to be stuck into in front of my computer and not move enough. And don't be bothering my head back there, I'm sure it is. So I know that the Y is a much needed community within the community of Brighton. It's a space where people go. I have seen people change their health in huge ways with movement and exercise. You as well. So, you know, those are the things that we need. Our doctors, we want to have doctors in this community. They're looking for a community with a Y. You know, so they can send their patients somewhere to become healthy and to stay healthy so that they're not on their doorsteps all the time. I've had a retired doctor as one of my customers this week to bend my ear and watch emergency and to knowing that if you don't have a Y, you're not as likely to get doctors. So it's good. All of this.
Just in terms of developing pictures with the Campbellford project for 4 years. I mean, I'm sure there was some visioning before that, 2 or 3, 4 years, I don't know. But if we could get moving here, we could form a true partnership with the Y and the new wellness center. 5 years before.
he doesn't want to know what you want. Secretary of Office, you know, and Councilor, I'd be happy to know that your husband sat very still. Why was this at very still? Any other comments or questions? Vote for the party is moved by Councilor President, seconded by Councilor Allen. Council received the delegation from Fred Wardle regarding the lease agreement with the Municipality of Brighton and YMCA of further discussion. Nay. Clerk report for has been requested.
Councilor Morale. Yes. Councilor Jeff Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Bobby Wright. Yes. Deputy Mayor Ron Anderson.
Yes.
Councilor Ann Butler.
Yes.
Councilor Byron Redis.
Yeah.
Mayor Brian Austin.
Yes. So everyone following along on the bouncing all of our agenda, we go to 12.1, which is unfinished business. Which is the report from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding YMCA 5-year lease agreement, which was deferred from the May 21st, 2024 council agenda. CAO, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think as it was mentioned, this issue started first when I arrived in April, figuring out how we were at. The report that I provided in May was to maintain status quo, which was to $30,000 a year and address the request that the initial planning for equipment. With the request that has come tonight, change from the rental agreement to the purchase service agreement, the report that you have in front of you is not reflecting the request. So I can't recommend that the simple recommendation. This is on one.
The appropriate proposal to refer this back to staff or read to report. Will that go forward in August?
Yes.
Thank you. Everyone amenable? Well, there is happy with that. Councilor Allen?
Yeah, just clarification on what you look at the standard and all this. As far as. Presentation.
So what will happen is staff will take all of this information back and provide us with a new report and new recommendation. That's what I.
I'm just wondering if it's possible to just reword things so that we can move forward, or is that not possible for the? We just need to see it right there to August.
Scale.
Through Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Wright, you certainly can make a recommendation in like this evening. Just for me to say that my recommendation is what I'm going to go forward this evening. So, to accept your recommendation, would be at 30,000, I think your recommendation. So council wants to go in the direction and reports.
I have no issues with the amounts. And in terms of the references to a partnership, I have always been interested in that. That makes sense to me. So I have no problem with making that switch. And even to echo what Mayor's comment earlier with the management of the ultimate of the bylaws, that's going to be my management. So I'm totally open to making that kind of switch, at least in principle, tonight, even if we don't have a written agreement to vote on.
Right, so even if we made a decision on the report with the information coming forward, we have to wait till August to pass the bylaw. So we might as well, in my opinion, we might as well bring the report and the bylaw together in August, this is going to be August. Council Price.
Sure, thank you. I agree with, their recommendation. Part of this is something change. I'm not familiar with what the other implications of that are. I would like staff to have a look at that. Back to the plan, what it is. So, I would say that. Okay, next one.
So I've got a motion to raise the council for the report and the information from YMCA of Northumberland staff for a new report and recommendation. We're moving on. Councilor Howard. Second. Councilor Price. So any discussion on the motion? Those in favor? And did you hear the motion? Councilor Howell, did you hear the motion?
To the chair, the audio is so bad, I cannot tell at all what you're talking about.
Isn't that wonderful?
I can tell some voices, and frankly, Mr. Mayor, you're the only one who comes through semi-clearly. So thank you.
You're welcome. I've been seeing my radio voice for a long time.
Yeah, I can't comment because I don't even know what you're talking about right now. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. I have enough votes to say motion carried, so.
Go ahead.
So then the next item with regard to the YMCA is 13.2. YMCA lease agreement, and as we have referred the CAO's report back to staff for a new report, it would be wise to withdraw this motion. We'll get a new one. So, Councilor Wheeldon and Wright, we were second here. You'll get withdraw this. Okay, that ends all the items to be discussed with regard to the YMCA. If any of you would like to stay for the other very business of this municipality, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, I'm going to take a 10-minute recess while we let the folks vacate. That's probably why Jessica's been.
Candace, Candace, can you just look behind you? Tell me, is the microphone, no, on the screen? Is the microphone crossed out? Okay, good. That's all. I wanted to make sure the microphone wasn't crossed out so you guys can talk. That's fine.
Are we okay to go?
Yeah, I just can't see from here.
Yeah, I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Ladies and gentlemen. I'll call the feedback. We'll start, we'll go back into the public meeting, which is a presentation from Peter Simcisko, Watson Associates, regarding the development charitable study. Here. I'll turn the floor over to you.
Hi, good evening. Are we good to start with the presentation? My apologies, it's very difficult to hear.
We are okay to start with the presentation, and you can share your screen. We now have you up live.
Perfect. Let me do that. Thank you. And the presentation should be up on the screen now.
We can see it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the confirmation. So good evening, everyone. This meeting is a statutory requirement under the Development Charges Act. It is something that we need to undertake prior to Council's consideration of the approval of a new development charges bylaw. Some of the other requirements prior to Council's consideration of a new development charges bylaw include the preparation of a formal development charges background study, which needs to be made publicly available at least 60 days prior to Council considering approval of a new bylaw, and at least 2 weeks prior to the statutory public meeting. Really, the purpose of the presentation this evening is to provide an overview of the development charges background study, and then to receive public input on the proposed policies and charges as put forward in that study. So to provide a quick summary of the process that we've been through so far, we commenced the project of preparing the development charges study back in February of this year. We spent about 5 months working very closely with the municipality staff in establishing a growth forecast for the municipality, collecting various data, various pieces of information to help us understand historical service standards for the service areas that are included in the calculation of the charge, as well as importantly looking at what the future capital needs are that the municipality is facing in order to accommodate future development to occur. We then undertook the calculations of the development charge itself. We've had opportunities to review and refine those calculations, again, with the assistance of the municipality staff. We did provide a information session for council at the beginning of June. Since that council presentation, we have seen the release of the formal development charges background study that occurred on June 13th. And that meets that 60-day requirement for that study to be publicly available prior to council considering approval of a new development charges bylaw. We have also held a consultation session with the development community to provide an overview of the process of the study of the findings, and then to gain some initial feedback on the proposed charges and policies within the bylaw. That brings us to today, undertaking the statutory public meeting process. And as things stand currently, we would be expecting council to consider approval of a new development charges bylaw on August 12th. Now, there are some alternative options around that date that have come to light since the study was initially put together. And so I'll come back to that at the very end of the public meeting presentation. So the next several slides are going to provide a high-level summary of the detailed technical analysis that's provided in full detail in the development charges background study. Really, the process begins with estimating the amount of growth that's expected within a municipality over various growth forecast horizons. And so as part of this development charges background study in developing that growth forecast, the Northumberland County Municipal Comprehensive Review was used as a basis for that. Which dates back to 2021, as well as discussions that we had with the municipality staff regarding servicing and land supply within the municipality as well. And so in terms of the growth forecast that has been put together, there are two time horizons that have been considered as part of the process, a 10-year forecast horizon to 2034, where we are expecting the municipality's population to grow by just over 1,200 people over that 10-year time frame, and that growth in population would be accompanied by a growth of about 704 additional dwelling units across the municipality. We are also expecting some employment growth, about 162 additional jobs to be created within the municipality over the next 10 years to 2034. And then that job growth would be accompanied by about 142,000 square feet of additional non-residential building space. There's also a longer term planning horizon looking out to 2051 that's been used for some of the services as well, which I'll speak to shortly on the next slide. The one other thing I would like to point out on this slide here is the very bottom row, where you will see that we have also considered that 10-year growth forecast specific to the urban serviced areas, so areas serviced by water and wastewater, as that population and employment growth is particularly important and relevant to the calculation of the water and wastewater portions of the development charge. So having looked at the anticipated amount of growth, on the next slide here, we have a summary of the services that have been included or considered as part of the development charges background study, which you see listed down the left-hand side of the table here. And then on the right-hand side of the table, we have indicated the planning period at which we are looking when identifying the future capital needs that may be required to service the growth related to these services. And so as you will see, for the vast majority of the services, we have taken a 10-year outlook when identifying the future capital needs. The one exception being fire protection services, where we have taken a longer term view looking out to 2051 because of the existence of a recent master plan that's been developed for that particular service area. So having looked at the list of services that have been included in the development charges background study, the next slide here summarizes the total, first of all, gross capital costs that have been identified through this process, which across all of the service areas total about $116.5 million. From those gross capital costs, there have been several notable deductions that have been observed as part of the process of calculating the charge. Most notably, the benefit to existing deduction, which recognizes that a number of the capital works that have been identified in the background study will provide a benefit to the existing community as well through the replacement of existing assets, for example, in that regard. The next most notable deduction is related to post-period benefit, which recognizes that some of the capital investments, some of the projects that have been identified in the background study will provide additional capacity for growth beyond the 10-year periods that we have looked at as part of this process. We have also observed grants and subsidies or other external contributions that are known or expected at least to be available to offset some of the capital costs that have been identified. And then finally, we have also observed an adjustment reflecting the money that the municipality has collected from development charges in the past that are available in development charge reserve funds to offset some of these future capital needs as well. And so having made those deductions, that leaves us with about just under $25 million of potentially development charge recoverable costs. And then in the table on the right-hand side of the slide, we see how that's broken out by individual service areas and the respective portion of those development charge recoverable costs that relate to that service area. In terms of the most significant areas in terms of the amount of capital costs that have been identified, and we see that water at about $6.1 million represents about a quarter of those development charge eligible costs. Fire represents about $5.1 million in capital costs. And then we have wastewater representing about 18% of the development charge eligible costs. And then roads and related at about 16%. That's sort of just at the very top here. And so as is very commonly seen, the hard services of water, wastewater, and roads and related, fire protection typically represents the largest share of the capital costs that municipalities recover through the development charge. So having looked at the growth as well as the capital needs that have been identified through the study process, the table on the next slide here summarizes the full schedule of charges that have been calculated based on those capital costs. So these represent the maximum development charges that the municipality could impose based on the capital needs that have been identified related to that growth. We'll look at some comparison charts shortly, which are probably a little bit more meaningful, but just wanted to point out here that as has been the practice historically, the charges are expressed on the residential side as charges per unit for different types of dwelling units, recognizing that there are different levels of occupancy associated with these different dwelling units. And so, for example, because an apartment unit would typically have a lower number of occupants on average than a single detached home, the corresponding charge is lower as well. Again, reflective of the fact that there are fewer occupants on average and therefore a lesser demand on municipal services that results from those particular dwelling units. On the non-residential side of things, we see that the charges are expressed as a charge per unit of gross floor area, in this case per square foot, as is commonly seen in development charge bylaws. So in the next couple of slides, we are going to look at how the calculated charges compare to the charges that are currently in effect under the municipality's existing development charges bylaw. The first comparison table here provides that comparison for the charges that are in effect for a single or semi-detached home currently. And those current development charges are shown in the second column of the table. And then the third column of the table shows the calculated charges based on the capital needs that we just talked about. And again, as identified in full detail in the development charges background study. And then the final column of the table shows the difference between the charges that have been calculated and that the municipality could impose based on the needs that have been identified relative to the charges that are currently in effect. And so looking at these, while it is broken out by service here, I'm going to point your attention to the bottom of the table where we see the total charges payable for, again, in this case, a single detached dwelling on full municipal services, so including water and wastewater. And we see that for that type of development, the total development charges payable would go from about $14,300 per unit to about $35,900 per unit, which represents a increase of about $21,500 per unit. And a lesser increase in the rural areas. So this is all of the services excluding water and wastewater. And when we look at that broken down by service area, we see that the largest increases have occurred within water and wastewater services, which are in the second portion of the table. And then looking at the top part in terms of the municipal-wide services, the largest increases have occurred within the parks and recreation area and then fire protection services as well. So that's the comparison for a single detached dwelling. On the next slide, we have a very similar comparison, this time showing the charges payable per square foot of gross floor area applicable to commercial developments. And again, second column of the table showing the charges that are currently in effect. So for a commercial development in the urban serviced areas, that charge currently is $8.62 per square foot. And based on the charges that have been calculated, that charge would go to $17.95 per square foot, which represents an increase of about $9.33 per square foot, with again, the areas with the largest increases or impact on that calculated charge being the same as we looked at in the previous comparison table. So water and wastewater services are a big contributor to the increase in the charge on the non-residential side as well, as are fire protection services, and then to a lesser degree, the parks and recreation component which is generally attributed to a much lesser degree to non-residential development. So having looked at the comparison of current and calculated charges, to put those into a broader context, we did want to provide some comparison charts looking at what the development charges payable would be in other area municipalities. For completeness, we have also included any upper tier development charges as may be applicable, which are shown with the orange portion of the stacked bars, as well as education development charges, which are illustrated with the green portion of the bars, again, where applicable. And so the gray arrow on the right-hand side of the illustration is showing what those development charges are when accounting for the county development charges as well in the municipality. And then the teal arrow to the left of the illustration is showing where that development charge would be, again, in this case for a single detached home, with the development charges that have been calculated as part of this process. And so that does show that there would be a notable increase relative to the comparators as well. A couple of things to note, again, just based on some feedback that we have received throughout this process, we did want to indicate where some of these municipalities are currently in the process of updating their own development charge studies and bylaws. So you will see some asterisks, for example, City of Kingston, some other Greater Napanee, for example. So some of the municipalities where we are expecting an update later in 2024 to their development charge rates. And then in some other cases, such as for the Municipality of Port Hope, for example, and a few others, where they have already gone through the process but haven't yet formally adopted a new bylaw, we did want to show what those calculated rates are coming out at, which we're expecting them to approve in the near future as well. So that's the comparison on the residential side of the development charge. Very similar comparison on the next slide here, in this case showing the comparison of the development charges payable, in this case per square meter of gross floor area applicable to commercial developments, and again including the upper tier development charges where applicable as well. And so again, very similar picture here, showing with the gray arrow where those development charges are currently in the municipality based on the current development charges bylaw, and then the arrow to the left of the chart is showing where those charges would be, again, per square meter of gross floor area based on the charges that have been calculated as part of this process. So again, there would be certainly an increase both in absolute terms as well as relative to the comparator municipalities in that regard. So having looked at the calculated charges and compared those to the charges that are currently in effect, the final part of the presentation will just go through some of the proposed policies that form part of the proposed development charges bylaw, which is included as an appendix of the formal development charges background study. So firstly, looking at some of the exemptions and discounts and then other considerations. First of all, there are a number of statutory or mandatory exemptions that all municipalities must include and observe in their development charge bylaws. So those have all been reflected in this updated proposed development charge bylaw. Those are listed on the top left of the table here. In terms of other reductions and not necessarily full exemptions, again, these have all been reflected in the municipality's development charge bylaw, including the discounts for rental housing developments based on the number of bedrooms that are within the individual units. For developments that proceed through a site plan or zoning bylaw amendment application, they have their development charges frozen at the rates that were in effect when that planning application was submitted to the municipality, and that rate freeze applies for a period of 18 months from the approval of that application to the time of building permit. And then finally, for developments that are related to rental housing or institutional type developments, they don't pay their development charges right at building permit issuance, but over 6 equal annual installments. And so again, those are all statutory provisions under the Development Charges Act, which have been fully embraced within the proposed bylaw. In addition to those statutory exemptions and reductions, discounts, municipalities also have the ability to introduce their own or discretionary exemption policies into the development charge bylaw. In the proposed development charge bylaw, we have maintained the current exemption policies as under the municipality's current development charge bylaw, which include a full exemption from the payment of development charges for places of worship, as well as a full exemption for industrial developments, both of which are very common exemptions in municipal development charge bylaws and are both exemptions that have been in the municipality's development charge bylaws historically and currently. So a few other policy areas to round out the discussion. First of all, the spatial applicability of the proposed development charge bylaw. It is proposed that the municipality continues to impose development charges on a municipal-wide basis and under one development charge bylaw, with the exception of water and wastewater services, for which development charges would be imposed only within the serviced areas, as has been the practice historically. In terms of the timing of collection, generally development charges are calculated and become payable at building permit issuance. There are some special cases or exceptions from that rule. As I mentioned a short while ago, for developments that proceed through the site plan or zoning bylaw amendment process, they have their development charges frozen for a period of time, as well as for rental and institutional housing developments, they have a payment deferral over 6 equal annual installments. In addition to those policies within the bylaw, there's also a provision in there that provides council the ability to enter into accelerated or deferred payment agreements on a case-by-case basis as well. And again, this is all maintaining the policies that are within the existing bylaw as well. Similarly, where there is a demolition that occurs followed by a redevelopment or a change of use of an existing building from one use to another, there's a development charge credit that is observed on those types of redevelopments, and maintaining the municipality's current policy in that regard. Indexation, the Development Charges Act does give municipalities the ability to adjust their development charges in accordance with the non-residential construction price index as tracked by Statistics Canada. And so what's proposed moving forward is maintaining the historical practice of adjusting the development charge annually on the anniversary date of the development charge bylaw. The final piece here in terms of bylaw expiry, this is one area that is changing from the current bylaw. That's just due to some recent legislative changes, where historically development charges bylaws under the Act were allowed to have a maximum shelf life of 5 years. That has now been extended to 10 years. And so the proposed bylaw will have an expiry date that's 10 years from the time that it comes into effect. That being said, the municipality will still have the ability to reopen that bylaw, amend the bylaw as needed throughout that 10-year life. So that rounds out the proposed policies, again, mostly in line with the policies that are currently in effect under the existing bylaw. In terms of the next steps, we are looking to receive feedback from both council and the public as part of this public meeting. Council will then need to determine if any further revisions are required to the development charges background study or the draft bylaw, any policies contained in that. And originally we were expecting council to consider approval of the development charges background study and adoption of a new development charges bylaw in August or August 12th specifically. Which would have been required in order to have a new bylaw before the current bylaw expires on September 3rd. Now, we have, as I mentioned earlier, undertaken a consultation session with the development industry since the release of the formal background study. There have been some questions that were raised following the consultation session. I also understand that there have been 2 formal submissions provided, which we do have a copy of and are going to work with municipal staff on addressing those questions. And I believe council has been made aware of those submissions as well. And so while originally the plan was to have council consider approval of the new development charges bylaw on August 12th, with the recent passing of Bill 185, municipalities now have the ability to extend the expiry date of their existing bylaws. And so in light of that, in order to provide additional time for further consultation with the development industry, there is the option to pass an amending bylaw, which would extend the expiry of the existing bylaw. And so in consultation with the municipality staff, excuse me, we would suggest a 90-day extension of the existing bylaw as an option to provide additional time for those additional consultations, and the amending bylaw to enable that extension would be brought forward to council on August 12th instead of a brand new development charge bylaw. And then that new development charge bylaw would be brought back for council's consideration by early December. So again, within that 90-day period, following those additional consultations with the development community. And so that summarizes the key points in terms of the background study itself. Before we go back to receive feedback from council and the public, there is one additional item that we wanted to come back to. This is going back to the council information session that we had back in June. I am aware that there have been some questions about the potential to impose at least some of these charges under the authority of the Municipal Act versus the Development Charges Act. When those charges are imposed under the Municipal Act, they are frequently referred to as impost fees or Municipal Act capital charges. So just wanted to provide a very high-level summary here in terms of some of the pros and cons of either mechanism. So starting with the development charges component, certainly this is a well-established funding mechanism for growth-related capital expenditures. The municipality has a long-standing history of using development charges to fund those growth-related needs. So again, it's a very well-established mechanism and would be a continuation of those historical and current practices. In terms of the public process, there's no statutory public process required under the Municipal Act when passing a Municipal Act charge bylaw. That being said, I think the statutory process as required by the Development Charges Act is very transparent. It's certainly very well understood by the development industry. In fact, this public meeting is a part of that process. The release of the background study is a part of that process. So it just provides for a very open and transparent process in that regard. In terms of one of the benefits of the development charges regime or imposing a bylaw under the Development Charges Act is that building permit issuance can be withheld if development charges are not paid. Which I'm not sure if there's it doesn't appear that there are similar abilities for a municipality to withhold the issuance of a building permit if a charge under the Municipal Act is not paid in that regard. And then lastly, there's potentially a smaller financial risk in case of appeal. So I should mention that development charge bylaws are appealable to the Ontario Land Tribunal for a period of 40 days from the time of approval of the new development charge bylaw. And any outcomes of the appeal are typically limited to if there's a component of the charge that there's disagreement on and the Land Tribunal finds that the charge should be lower than what was identified through the original study, then there's the potential to be required to issue refunds on the difference from the charge as coming out of the appeal process from the charge that was originally charged. So it's potentially a smaller financial implication in terms of having to issue those refunds. On the impost fee side of things, so again, this is the charge would itself be the same. The process we would follow in calculating the charge would be the same as we have followed for the development charges component and as shown in the development charges background study. Starting maybe from the bottom here in terms of that legal risk or risk of appeal, I think the ability for someone to appeal a bylaw under the Municipal Act is a little bit more limited. It's not something that goes through the Land Tribunal. It would go through a regular court. Where someone can basically disagree with the legality of that Municipal Act bylaw. So it's a narrower scope potentially for the appeal. However, something to keep in mind is that if the court was to find the bylaw not legal and would quash the bylaw, there's potentially bigger risk in terms of the refunds that may need to be issued if that was to happen. Um, moving up in terms of one of the benefits of a bylaw under the Municipal Act is that it can be somewhat easier to implement in terms of the speed of the process, because as I mentioned earlier, there are no public process requirements explicitly required under the Municipal Act. There are also no annual requirements around reserve funds and things like that. So it's a little bit easier, perhaps administratively, than the development charges, which require an annual treasurer statements on the status of the reserve funds, the development charges collected, what's been spent on each project that was identified in the study, and so on. So, and it is a little bit more onerous under the development charges regime, but certainly transparent and I think welcomed by the development industry. And then finally, in terms of the impost fees or capital charges under the Municipal Act, they do potentially provide for a higher level of cost recovery relative to the development charges regime, which, as we saw on one of the slides earlier, does require municipalities to observe a number of statutory exemptions for certain types of development. So those are not statutorily required, certainly under the Municipal Act, and therefore there's potentially a greater amount of the growth-related costs that can ultimately be recovered through that mechanism. With all of that said, and as highlighted at the very bottom here, I think the big question mark, and I made note of this back in June when we provided the council information session, is that I think a legal opinion would certainly be required on whether the municipality has the ability to impose these charges under the Municipal Act, given that a number of these projects and these costs have historically been included in the municipality's development charges bylaws. There is some wording in the Development Charges Act and the Municipal Act that talks about municipalities certainly not being able to recover the same costs under both mechanisms. It's a little bit less clear on whether that extends to costs that were previously included under a development charge bylaw and whether a municipality has the ability to take those out of a development charge bylaw and put them under a Municipal Act bylaw. So again, that's still, I think, an open question that would need to be addressed with input from legal counsel as to whether there is that ability, but just wanted to provide this comparison of some of the key pros and cons of each mechanism in that regard. And so that summarizes the formal part of the presentation, and we would turn it over for any input from council and the public at this point.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Simcisko. I think Thank you, Mr. Simcisko. Are there persons present who have any questions or comments with regard to this development sector? That's Peter. There it is. That's it. Push the lavender button and introduce.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Ruth Heswick, and I'm the CEO of the Home Builders Association. I come before you to discuss a matter of significant concern for our association and the broader residential construction industry in the region. Recently, the industry was presented with this 155-page development chart study, an extensive and complex document crucial for our future planning and operations. Unfortunately, the timeline provided for reviewing this study and submitting feedback has been extremely short for the industry stakeholders. Given the importance and depth of the document, this short time frame is inadequate for a thorough review and meaningful input. We recognize the necessity and importance of development charges as an industry. These charges are vital for supporting infrastructure and services that help Brighton grow and make it a great place to live. However, the preparation and review of such an extensive study requires substantial time to ensure all aspects are properly considered and understood. It's likely that staff and council were aware that the current law is set to expire in September of this year, and has provided many months by tonight for the municipality to prepare and engage with consultants to ready this study in a meaningful way. Yet the residential construction industry was not afforded the same opportunity for reasonable time to analyze and provide comprehensive stakeholder feedback on a study that our industry effectively pays for through developments. Our industry's feedback is crucial for informed decision-making. Development charges impact the cost and feasibility of housing projects, and without proper input, there's a risk of unintended consequences that could affect housing affordability and availability in the community. We're not opposed to development charges, rather we seek a collaborative approach. We need sufficient time to review the study thoroughly and offer well-considered feedback that will help this council make informed decisions. This will ensure that the development charges imposed are fair, balanced, and supportive of sustainable growth in Brighton. In conclusion, we respectfully request an extension of the review period for the development charges study. There might be a possibility this evening. This will allow the association and other industry stakeholders to provide the detailed and thorough feedback that such critical document warrants. We are committed as always to working collaboratively with staff and council to achieve outcomes that benefit the entire community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
You CEO, are there any questions? Are there any other persons present who have questions or comments with regard to the needs of that study? We all know you, Steve, but please introduce yourself.
So that. I think it's the time to talk tonight.
Just give your name for the record. Sorry, Stephen Toby. And some businesses here in the house in this town.
I was at the first DC meeting in 1997. Since then, I've got a lot of gray hair, so I've seen a few things. I've seen different councils approach this in different ways. Sensing tonight it's a good relationship tonight. I sense that it's going to be a good partnership. Aaron asked for YMCA to be a good partner with the municipality. We're asking for a partnership. We represent a large part of economic impact of Brighton. We want to make sure that stays competitive with neighbors, so on. And this power. And one of the things that most concerns builders and developers, business things come down the pipe is affordability. You have counselors here and online that campaign on affordability. And we've done a lot in the building industry for affordability. We continue to do it, and we work with your staff. And this represents 125% increase in charge. It's very substantial. On our most cost-effective unit, this is 3%. So every year in January, I get fair salesman telling me how much stuff's going to go up. When the salesman tells me how much stuff's going to go up. Generally, it's a little around 2%. So if I add 1.5% to 2%, 3%, that's 5% in 1 year. And that's going to be significant. So I think I've heard tonight what we need is time to get this right, time to review. I think we need a willingness, for you to listen to what we have to say, as well as for your consultants, and to implement it correctly. So not only want to listen, but want to get the charge right. And if those things, you have a good partnership with the builders and developers in this town, the taxes continue to flow in, but we don't want to be uncompetitive with our neighbors. We don't want to be jumping into things that are not correct in our view. So we sense what we're doing is delay on this thing, get a delay.
Yes. Anyone else present who wishes to make comment on these guidelines? Any questions or comments from members of council? Council Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. To the CEO from Planning Controllers and Mr. Colby in your room. There was comments made by Peter a few minutes ago about a 90-day kind of. Does that give on to?
And that 90-day would actually be longer than that. The 90 days would be 90 days from the expiry of the bylaw, which is September 3rd. So we're talking about 4 months.
Yeah, so Steve's over, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Then we very well. So I think this is a back and forth kind of thing. So, I mean, if I was a kid at Christmas, we supposed to choose Cadillac, put it all on the list. And it says sometimes when we go to development charges, that's the way it is. We put a lot of stuff on the list. This probably shoots the stars and the moon, just won't have like a. I mean, further than that.
Councilman. Any other members of council with questions? CAO or director, do we need to add anything about an extension, or is that the intent of this?
So perhaps we should have some sort of a resolution directing staff to bring forward a bylaw extension for, we have to figure out for you, but the bylaw that we have.
Would you mind also drafting a resolution separate from receiving public information? Mr. Simcisko, any final comments? Peter, are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Do you have any final comments?
Nope, thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you, sir. Motion before you, moved by Councilor Fred, seconded by Engineer Anderson. The council received a presentation from Peter Simcisko, Watson and Associates, and all comments from members of the public regarding the development charges set. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Yeah, I'm trying to be in
That was about it.
that is correct.
Councilor Fred, how many times did it last? Councilor staff, the bylaw extended bylaws 89.19 90 days, is that? The council direct staff to bring a bylaw extending bylaw 089 for 90 days.
The only, I'm just wondering whether or not we would amend any that was specific to the we can go back to it.
August. Oh. No, we'll bring the amending bylaw for the August 12th meeting, but it will extend the existing bylaw by 90 days to December 3rd, which means we'll need to pass a new bylaw in the third meeting of November. Right. In order, or we'll have to hold a special meeting in advance to Motion reads the council direct staff bring an amending bylaw, extending bylaw 089/2019 for 90 days to the August 12th for council meeting. So. Now, it's a second. Discussion. Okay. That. All of this agenda rates and this is citizens comment. First, mention that there were none, let's go please. Words. Perfect word, this signal bylaw, understand rules, order, procedure, council, municipality of Brighton. Clerk, we read your report. Before items.
No, you're not.
The motion moved by Council Prentice, second by Deputy Mayor Anderson, Council. Prentice and second by Deputy Mayor Anderson, Council received the staff report received the bylaw. Being a bylaw to establish rules of order and procedure for the council of municipality of Brighton, and the council approved the attached procedural bylaw as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. CAO's ongoing report and capital status update. CAO, we read through the report. Motion, you have a motion moved by Council Prentice, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. Council received the ongoing report and capital status update as information. Any questions or comments from this council? Favor? Carried. Business. That brings us to practice. Lease. The Lions Club. Right, the council has a bylaw. It's for second and third reading and finally passes on the stating the bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into agreement into anything with the Lions. Procedural bylaw. Moved by Council Wright, seconded by Council Yieldon, the council gets a bylaw, first, second, and third reading, and finally passes on the state, being the bylaw to govern the proceedings of the council corporation of the municipality of Brighton. Go ahead, Council Wright.
I'm just a little bit concerned about the maximum for delegates, being two. Delegations. Just in the fact that citizens council, they can get up and speak, their comments are recorded, correct? I mean, I get it would happen very often, but if there was multiple things in an agenda that the community wanted to speak on as a delegate, like they did tonight with Mr. Wardle, keeping it to just two might not give the public as much of a voice as we should be giving them. It's just my thought on the matter.
No.
We could have more. I mean, typically what I do is if there was two presentations or a presentation that would be separate from a delegation. So we could have a presentation and then two delegations. Or we could have two presentations and two delegations. We can do that. Through the procedure bylaw. It depends, right?
And usually delegations, like they send their request to me. I'm not sure. Typically I've done 3 before.
What did you think, concern of fine that we're seeking out for?
So the previous council.
The previous council.
Yeah.
And we could also suspend the procedural bylaw, should we have a case where we have a packed agenda and more than one concerning issue. And the clerk would then bring that to me, and I would say, well, no, let's put them on the agenda, we'll suspend the decision. That's not council decision, then we'll have to figure out where the delegates go. My experience from this group and other groups I work with is when we have those impactful issues to deal with, we just deal with them in the evening. The procedure is just meant to be able to help sort order as we create the agendas on a weekly basis. Any further comments, council? All okay? Next is with regard to this funding agreement between the building fund. For the motion moved by Council Wright, second by Council Building, Council Bylaws for second and third reading of the state. The bylaw authorized the mayor and the clerk to sign the municipal funding agreement to transfer of Canada to the building fund under the Canada Ontario Association of Municipalities of Ontario agreement between AMO and the Corporation of Municipality of Brighton. Any discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Temporary borrowing bylaw with a motion made by Council Wright, second by Council Building, and Council Bylaws for second and third reading of time impacts on the state. Being a bylaw to authorize the temporary borrowing from time to time to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st. Second discussion. Council Press.
One question, like the chair, one question, the discussion. I don't recall that one of the election is this year some inspection potentially.
Brandon, no, a temporary borrowing bylaw was requested from the bank. We do have line of credit that we haven't used in a number of years. And we're not using it right now either. But they requested the temporary borrowing bylaw, so I bring one forward each year to make sure it goes to the bank that has that line of credit that we're not using.
It's not an unusual procedural. That helps.
Okay, just as a follow up, this is something the bank requires just as a backstop.
Right. They just need to know the council is okay with having this line of credit. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Yeah. Bring us to reports, minutes of advisory committees of council by the U teams. Procedural advisory committee meeting. Nation, I have a motion with Council Wright, second by Council Builder, with council support, but received the recommendation by the Rural Advisory Committee, Council Direct Staff, their report to council assessing the cost of maintaining the gravel roads versus a surface treatment on the gravel roads in the rural community. So I'm supporting. And I suggest that we ask that this come forward to budget rather than getting staff to do a report in advance that will actually have to deal with the budget anyway. Is that fair?
Through the chair, that was the intent, so your worship was the members of rural advisory were concerned about the ongoing annual cost of gravel roads. They were inquiring as to is there betting determine the economic benefit that our hardship on at least some of the roads. So the board had to create a couple of times a year and put that. Forward, and we hope to see something in the budget, and whether to do it, have at least some indication of the cost.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. And so I've added in further to this report, the included the budget recommendations. Is that okay with you, Councilor Ray? Any further discussion? Those in favor? Being not opposed, that motion is carried. Next is the rural advisory minutes with Councilor Eunice and Councilor Lang. The council received February 22nd, 2024 rural advisory committee minutes as presented. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So Councilors Perez and Crowley can go back for 2 seconds, although we received actually that's should be comments from members of council with regard to that. Next is the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting minutes. April 23rd, with the council buildings, and the council Brighton, the council received the April 23rd, 2024 Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting minutes as presented. Councilors, council building, or representative present.
Well, just wanted to draw attention to the great work of Ben and Caroline coming alongside the communications subcommittee and helping them envision what they could do to promote sustainability community through the establishment of the. So they're busy working away on that and great support from us.
Thank you. Any other comments on it? All those in favor? Opposed? Recommendation for environmental sustainability. With the House Wheelman, second the House Bright, the council support. Recommendation by the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee. Council direct staff to amend the committee's terms of reference to add the Minister of Environment, Police, and Government Secretaries as an active committee.
I just want to briefly speak to this. I didn't know that there was an environment minister in the student government. We've talked around this before about how important it is to get youth involved in politics. And it seemed natural that we have a standing position for the Minister of Environment locally to be on this committee. So,
I like the initiative. Has anyone reached out to the faculty advisor? It's like,
I'm not entirely sure. We have 3 teachers on our committee, so I'm sure one of them will.
perfect. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Being not opposed, that motion. Other environmental sustainability is moved by Council Building, second by Council support the recommendation by the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee. Council direct staff to investigate and then forward a report regarding the feasibility of a water conservation breathing program to support the use of rain barrels.
This who has been asking me about rain barrels for some time, and so I finally remembered to bring it to committee, and I did a little bit of research into it. There are a lot of communities across Canada, especially in Alberta, that have a rain barrel rebate program. It's like a $50 rebate on the water bill. Typically, a rain barrel sale is a fundraiser for some community initiative anyway, and so it's kind of a win-win-win. Shouldn't be by mistake.
Thank you. We also include on this one, bring forward the budget deliberations. Okay, with that, Council President.
Important brought forward. Councilor Briggs. Through the chair, thank you. Wonderful idea, which should exist years ago with the but I think something that has further you might want to be aware of is that downside various houses are specific sizes. Finding readily available adapters to put into those downpipes to Carol is extremely challenging. Just thought I'd let you know that it's on the 58 day and a half 5 months. They might go.
And I've been to each one of the building supply stores, you know, on the community on the same area.
Any further discussion? Councilor.
I think a few years ago, the Lions Club tried to initiate a program that's been great. Maybe somewhere there you can. That works, and I mean, so conferences that we need to.
Heritage Advisory, moved by Councilor Brown, second by Councilor Rowley, also received the May 13th, for Heritage Advisory Committee minutes as presented. The right to
Not so much on these guys, but just, you know, like, I think I saw an email just today, from Brian Todd Foundation at the hospital,
No. Anything further from members? Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. Just regarding, HAC resolution number 28 regarding the, I believe a few years ago, we always gave information on that. Although I'm working with a group in another municipality regarding heritage and information as well, they're just bringing their designated. You can share with me as far as programs, information.
we just had a training session this week. Oh, okay, so, I will see what I can take up.
Any further from members? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Task force, training, Rowley. Seconded by Council Wheeler, the council received for information, housing, and homeless task force, meeting notes.
Yeah, we heard from Martin, who runs a non-profit up in Halliburton area, that is using community social bonds to support affordable housing projects. Community social bonds, is something I've been looking into a little bit as well, in terms of some cultural preservation initiatives I've been working on. It's something that we don't really use here. We have, as a municipality, the power to issue bonds, so we don't even need to set up a community social bond organization necessarily. That is a tool in our toolkit that we haven't used before. So it was interesting to see how a nonprofit is using it in that area. And I'll probably be bringing up that issue again. The other thing that came out of that meeting is that we sensed that there was a lot of need for a housing summit that actually the last housing summit that we had in Northumberland was in October, and it was all the not-for-profit, non-market housing groups. It was the county, it was Habitat, it was Think Tiny Homes. And we need to have some kind of housing summit event with home builders, and I recognize that most of them left before I got to talking about this, but I'll be reaching out to them, the people who are in this room, to invite them to such an event. I know Mr. Hagelman has talked about potentially trying to organize one here. Now there's interest across Northumberland County, so watch for that coming soon.
Anything else from members of council? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Library board is from Council Valley, seconded by Council Gilman, the council received by the library board. May 22nd, for the event as presented. Right, it's numbers, you're going to.
I'd like to make this point comment regarding the jobs issue that the library is now at for the second year in a row. It's a concern for them as far as they have and being able to stay within as far as looking after staff. Any suggestions from the bureau of helpful to them? I think I know what you suggested, maybe having the library come together as a group to petition.
I have admitted two things to the CEO of the library. One is that we'll certainly bring this up with Mr. Lawrence when I'm speaking with him. But also that if she would like for us in Brighton to host Mr. Lawrence and the other libraries, that I would make sure that we found space to do so. And I think it would be a good idea to come together as Northumberland libraries. I think it makes sense for this constituency.
Thank you.
Anything further, members of council? Not member of council, Director Whitaker, would you have a comment?
Yes, Mayor Alexander, and to Valley, we're also having that same issue, in the municipality with our applications, we're being funded fewer weeks, fewer students, fewer hours per week. It's the program, we used to have the program to be Ontario, the province of Ontario, and then that went away, and then we finished the program with the other jobs, and it seems to be there's maybe more and more applicants. We used to be able to get funding for our DBIA student, and we can't do that anymore either. So the problem exists not just with libraries, but overall.
I was aware of the municipalities as well, so thank you for that. If you mentioned that when having that conversation as well, would you be able to provide me with some more details?
Yes, Mayor, I'll start there and ask you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Any further on minutes from the library? All in favor? Opposed? Brings us to correspondence, direction items, endorsements, communications, and petitions. The first comes from the Eastern Ontario Warden's Caucus. Motion moved by Council Rowley and seconded by Council Gilman. I'll have a conversation. Council supported the request from the Chair of the Eastern Ontario Warden's Caucus regarding the calling for investment in municipal infrastructure for Eastern Ontario small and rural communities. Whereas Eastern Ontario small and rural municipalities face insurmountable challenges on both new growth related infrastructure and ongoing maintenance of their capital assets, including local roads and bridges, clean water, wastewater facilities, and municipally owned buildings, including recreation facilities and libraries. Whereas the Federation of Canadian Municipalities has calculated that municipal governments across Canada are responsible for approximately 60% of public infrastructure that supports our economy and quality of life, but only receive 10 cents of every tax dollar. Whereas the Eastern Ontario Warden's Caucus region's capital infrastructure deficit has increased by 58% since 2011 and is now at $6 billion growing. Whereas in 2018, the Ontario government mandated all Ontario municipalities to develop and fully fund capital asset management plans by July 5. Whereas the OWC has released a regional municipal infrastructure policy paper showing key infrastructure data, opportunities and challenges in small rural municipalities across Eastern Ontario. Whereas Eastern Ontario is developing an economy that can grow more with sustainable innovative infrastructure partnership and investment from the federal and Ontario governments. And whereas the infrastructure deficit for small rural municipalities cannot be adequately addressed with property tax revenue, restricted municipal borrowing capacity, and municipalities limited ability to generate in revenue. And whereas small rural taxpayers cannot afford dramatic increases to pay for current future infrastructure, Now therefore be it resolved that the municipality of Brighton joins the East Frontier Wards Office, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, in calling on the federal and Ontario governments to immediately and sustainably partner with municipal governments by investing in the new and ongoing maintenance and repairs of municipal infrastructure in Eastern Ontario's small rural municipalities, and that federal and Ontario governments immediately review data and work together to implement solutions based on the EOWC's municipal infrastructure policy paper in partnership with small rural municipalities. And finally, that this resolution be forwarded to the Honorable Justin, be the right Honorable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, the Honorable Sean Fraser, Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities of Canada, the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honorable Eunice, Ontario Minister of Infrastructure, the Honorable Paul Landon, Ontario Minister of Housing, the Honorable Lisa Thompson, Ontario Minister of Rural Affairs, the Honorable Peter Beth Baldy, Ontario Minister of Finance, the Honorable Abhi Area, Ontario Minister of Transportation, the Honorable Victor Fidelli, Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Training, Lawrence FP, David Pecini, FP, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, Rural Ontario Municipal Association, and the Eastern Ontario Wards Office. Great discussion.
Just like to make a comment on your comment, across the rules and like that. Certainly a fine example of how politicians put their, which is together.
Thank you for the history, this is written by for the staff. I will be speaking to Meredith about its length. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Everything now opposed, motion. The next is correspondence from the township of Economy of Monaghan, the House rallies, the building, also support correspondence from the township of Economy of Monaghan regarding calling upon all levels of government to enact regulations for the importation, sale, storage, and use of non-OEM or ULC certified lithium-ion batteries. Further to this resolution, be sent to David Pecini and Lawrence and all Ontario municipalities. So discussion. Councilor Brothers.
Through the chair, thank you. In reading this through, I understand and recognize the concern with the boundaries, but I think it might be in this place, and perhaps we should really think about the government. First off, lithium batteries in Canada are subject to the English Good Act, which prescribes the rule of handling, transporting, packaging, placarding, marketing, that sort of stuff. Additionally, the UN Manual of Test Criteria, the federal worldwide standard for lithium batteries, that's the test protocol. And Canadian regulations stipulate that if you buying batteries in Canada, you can be ensuring that they meet a test and request documentation for them. And additionally, to ship onto this thing, there's also international civil regulations. So it seems to me, and very few of these are built that they will generally Chinese employees. The real issue is one of enforcement or one of regulation. So I think it's misplaced initially. I think it needs to be federally requesting that they be better enforcement. When they see a permit coming through the time looking batteries, or perhaps more rigorous inspections for the application to be done to ensure that they comply with all the standards. Because they clearly are a hazard, and it makes fire and people provide visible all over the place. I think community is not quite the level of government we need to go to raise this issue. alterations in this?
I did not hear everything that. I did hear the kind of extension should. You're suggesting that we send this on further to.
It is in the motion that goes back to the office. Yeah, well, I think we need to go to the actual government, and the minister responsible for customs. Because that is the source of entry for the installing of goods that are problematic. So we should be kind of not only endorsing it, but maybe enhancing it and insisting that they do a better job of controlling imports to ensure that they meet this goal, that they have manual test criteria. I mean, I have the 8 statutes that are required, and then places the onus clearly on the importer to get his documentation and make it part of their import documentation when they apply for customs entry. But it's not being enforced by customs officials. It's committed. Therein is the problem. There's nothing the MP or the prudential minister can do. This is a customs issue. Federal government's pet customs have to be asked to clamp down on that answers.
So you would like a line that says, and further that, something about how we deal with the importation.
Yeah.
And then that this resolution be sent to the minister responsible. We'll find out who that is, and the boards in all Ontario municipalities, and not bother and be changing with this at all. Great. So, Councilor Brown, Councilor Wheeler, is the movement and seconder. First of all, are you open to a friendly amendment of that nature?
Yeah.
I think it's some words. Right there. Go ahead.
I noticed that she grabbed the microphone, so I'm assuming he has something important to say on the matter, so I know that you know what you have to say. Before we go any
All right, Chief, good luck.
So 2 things. One is I agree with Councilor Fresh, through your worship. Councilor Fresh, I agree with Councilor Fresh, but the provincial level is also part of awareness. So we're trying to build some awareness in public education to say don't buy aftermarket chargers, aftermarket batteries, the ones that are causing the issue. To support the custom side, it's the counterfeit batteries that are coming in, also the counterfeit labels. So we cannot tell, get a supposing with the fire marshal, or told with ULC, CSA, the battery here, counterfeit one here, and you cannot tell. So they're having a hard time trying to get this. But what we're getting from the fire service is they buy their e-bike, the battery charger goes bad, they buy a cheap charger from somewhere else. Well, the good thing is burning the apartment stuff. New York City top fire fatality cause in New York City right now is the e-bike with the battery. So they went from cooking and smoking and other incidents to that in New York City, but obviously they get more price. But it's coming. So both levels of government, in my mind, one is trying to stop them from coming in, and 2 is we need to get some education out there. We're working with the fire marshal and the association of fire chiefs.
I think it should change. It should say we also call upon the federal government to enforce all existing regulations for the importation, sale, storage, and use of non-OEM or ULC certified lithium ion batteries. And that this resolution be forwarded to minister, I don't know, the individual responsible for customs.
Dominic LeBlanc, and Minister of Public Safety.
From a provincial perspective, so then I'm gonna ask, should we also then include with the chief's comments further that we encourage public education on the dangers associated with that, with the batteries and chargers? And then also then include having the chief and who that be the attorney general, or the solicitor discretion. Like a question?
We should also include the Minister of Transportation. Area, transportation, because that's subject to, that's what they can do that.
Is that federal or provincial?
Federal.
We, with the minister, federal minister of transportation.
Yes.
Not the provincial minister of transportation.
Oh,
Someone look up the federal minister of transportation. Pablo or Pablo? Alright. Yeah. You're like that kid in class. No. Could someone look up Minister Kushner's last name? Kushner, the Solicitor General. Eventually. With a friendly amendment, it is moved by Council Rowley, second by Council Bill. Council support the correspondence from the township of economy Monica regarding calling upon all levels of government to enact regulations for the importation, sale, storage, and use of non-OEM or ULC certified lithium-ion batteries, and further that council called upon the federal government to enforce existing regulations for the importation, sale, storage, and use of all non-OEM or ULC certified lithium-ion batteries. And further, that council encourages public education on the dangers associated with aftermarket batteries and chargers. And further, that this motion be sent to the Honorable Pablo Rodriguez, the Honorable Dominic LeBlanc, the Honorable Michael Kurtzner, the Honorable Kathleen Sakarian, MP David Puccini, MP Philip Lawrence, and all Ontario municipalities. Over second. Good. Any further discussion? You have discussion, or were you voting prematurely? You were voting?
Oh, I thought you were.
You're good? Yeah. Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Question. Brings us to FYI correspondence. The first, a thank you from the Brighton University. Moved by Councilor Gilden, seconded by Councilor Wright. The council received a thank you letter from the Brighton Marine Rescue dated June 20. Or as information, and discussion. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Hospital Foundation, moved by Councilor Wright, seconded by Councilor Gilden. The council received a thank you letter from the Federal Memorial Hospital Foundation for the support of the physician recruitment and retention program. Discussion. Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. Great, it's a good question period. Do either of the two gentlemen have any questions? Vote. And there's no one on Zoom, right? Can't see. We have no closed session. Recorded bylaws made by Councilor Freda, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The council gives the bylaws for a second and third reading and amendments of the state and bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the appropriation of the municipality of Brighton council. Discussion. Okay. I didn't catch it. I'll vote again. All in favor? So the white report, you can't see it. And it's moved by Councilor Freda, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The July 15th, 2024 meeting of council to be adjourned at 9:20 p.m. So any discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, everyone.